Holy crap, man. How did we somehow survive Midsommar? I mean, we actually got out of there alive.
You know what? I don't know if we're going to survive the comments.
Probably not.
Hey everyone, welcome to the horror show. I'm Cecil Laird.
Bienvenidos, I'm Jaime Fuego.
And we are here to do our spoiler discussion for Ari Aster's new project, Midsommar. Midsommar, or whatever you want to say, however you want to pronounce it, whatever. So normally with our spoiler reviews, you guys, we start at the beginning and go through to the end, and we'll do that roughly, but we're not going to go scene by scene because we just don't have the drive to be honest with you. Like, it was a disappointing situation because we wanted to like it so much,
Truly.
But it ended up being so long for so little.
Yeah, this was basically going to be his like homage, his send up to films like The Wicker Man, and I mean.
Well, it absolutely was that because it was basically the Wicked Man. The Wicked Man.
Yeah, down to the ending with burning people up in like a structure, man. Yep. I mean, it was really there's a fine line between homage and ripoff. There really truly is. And while this did things differently, obviously, with the aspect of the fact that it's a group of friends going as opposed to just a single cop investigating a cult or whatever. But I don't know. This is one that visually stood out as being beautiful and maintaining the consistency we saw from Ari in Hereditary. Mm-hmm. But from an uninspired scripting standpoint, it really at times felt to me like artistically indulgent. Mm-hmm. Self-indulgent for sure. Very self-indulgent, incoherent, just
haphazard.
Laughability in certain scenes in particular.
Yeah, definitely. There shouldn't have been laughing. So we'll get through it all.
Yeah, but I mean.
So let's start at the beginning. Yeah. So basically, what happens is what is shown in the trailer. Mm-hmm. So there is a young woman who is dating a young man.
Danny.
Danny is her name. She is dating a young man, Christian.
He's a douche.
Who has two friends by the name of Mark and Josh. And he is a bit of a douche himself because apparently he's been in a relationship with Danny for about 3 years, but wanting to break up for the last year.
Actually, it's 4 years. Three and a half.
Well, by the time we get
years.
It was 3 years at this point in the trailer. At this point in the movie. Yeah. So anyway, they're all sitting there and they're talking about how he needs to break up with her. But what we see before that is a bit of a setup where we see that she is hanging out by herself, living in her own place and dealing with an email that she got from apparently a bipolar dramatic sister. And we see the email and it says like, the darkness is here. Don't worry. Mom and dad are coming with me. Yeah. They're coming too. And then that was it. And she's basically like, my sister said some weird stuff, but she's never said anything quite like this. And it actually cuts to their house where it shows the sister asleep and the parents asleep. And then we show that our main character is really worried. And she calls her boyfriend and is like, hey, are we going to hang out tonight? And he's like, oh, I didn't realize we were going to. And she's just like, yeah, well, it wasn't set in stone or
nothing
anything.
Concrete.
But he could tell she's upset and she's just like, yeah, well, my sister said something that's a little bit weird, but it's okay. I'm not worried about it. So I'll just see you later.
Enabling her by giving her attention when she acts out like this.
So this is a conversation they've had before. Yeah. And basically, she then gets a call from an unknown number. Mm-hmm. And it then cuts to him and his friends where we see all of this and we see the fact that he's been wanting to break up with her and they're planning this trip to Sweden where there's going to be a bunch of Swedish babes and you're already creeping over. You got to move a little bit to your left. Thank you. And he gets a call from Danny. And as soon as he picks up the phone, and here's the thing, Ari Aster is clearly a big fan of females screaming into the microphone because there's a lot of Toni Collette from Hereditary levels of screaming numerous times in this movie.
Incessant, just wretched.
Overdone, if you'll ask my opinion.
Yes, very much so.
So anyway, she is wailing and he goes to her rescue and they end up together for at least another 6 months as a result of this. And so the guys are about to go on this trip to Sweden for this Midsommar festival, and she kind of crowbars her way in, kind of invites herself, or the spineless boyfriend ends up inviting her, and so they all end up going.
It was your guy's idea to invite, and blah, 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 blah.
Now, this does lead to one of the, again, we're going through spoilers, so this does lead to one of the funnier scenes, which is when it's after she has, told the boyfriend what's going on, and it's after the 6 months later, and basically...
I thought it was 2 months later.
Well, it went from snow to not snow, so I just was assuming it was going into June, because they said June was only 2 weeks away, so I figured it was a little bit later than that. But whatever, it doesn't matter. It went from snow to not snow. And so she basically, I forgot where I was going. Thanks for that.
Sorry. No, my bad.
No, but she decides that she's going to, or she finds out from the boyfriend in a uncomfortable way that they are planning this trip. Mm-hmm. She's out at a party with them, and she overhears that they're going to be going on this trip. She gets upset that he didn't tell her, but she's so clearly trying to cling on to this one relationship she has left that she won't let him leave even. Mm-hmm. She's just like, no, let's talk.
Sit down with me, please.
Sit down with me, please. And it's like, it's so sad because this is clearly the only tenable relationship that she has left in her life after her parents have been killed by her sister.
Which we didn't even specify.
Right. Now, did we skip over that? Yeah. Okay, we'll go back. Yeah. So she gets this eerie email.
The call that she gets from the unknown number, right, where it switches over to the friends. Yeah, well, when we cut back, she calls the boyfriend again, and all the friends are like, "Oh my God, is she calling you again?" And all that we hear on the other end of the phone is
the wailing. Yeah, that's true. We never explained the wailing. So the wailing is because it turns out that her sister actually followed through with the threat and started both cars in the garage on to start circulating carbon monoxide, but actually ran hoses that she duct taped onto the exhaust pipes all the way up into the bedroom of her parents and herself. It's her parents. She just runs the line into the parents' bedroom, which just kills them in their sleep. But then it shows her where she's run the line all the way directly up to her mouth and duct taped it to her mouth. And so she just had carbon monoxide going straight into her face. So her sister kills her entire family. Her, her mother and father and herself, and so she has nothing left
alone except for this douchey boyfriend who's not that into the relationship.
So that's anymore. The thing. That's a part of the problem. I was bought in, man. I was in on this. I was like, Jesus, like they hit us with the 30 minutes in of Hereditary right up front. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, here's some really huge tragedy. How do you deal with it? And I was on board. I bought into the characters as a result of it. As cheesy as the boyfriend was, I bought into those characters. Well, I bought into hers, but I bought into his as well too, because he was going for it. Well, fair enough, but I bought into it. And so they all end up going to this Swedish trip, and one of the guy's friends, who is actually from the village where they're going.
Which is a little secluded, hidden community that they don't want anybody to know about, and
they walk them miles off the grid and have them park even further away, and as soon as they arrive, they all take a bunch of mushrooms, and so they're all completely disoriented before they move on. So they won't even remember
how they got there.
Exactly. So then they all move on. But they're just on vacation, so they think they're having fun. Unfortunately, the main girl is really traumatized by what happened. So anytime anyone mentions family, it triggers her, and she starts to have panic attacks. And this is what's great. The acting is great. Her acting is great, except she does a lot of this. She does a lot of... which is what you do when you're trying to like calm down from a high or de-intensify your anxiety.
That's not a high.
No, you're de-intensifying your anxiety too. So that was realistic. The problem is they have her doing that so much through the movie that it ends up getting a little bit over the top.
Over the top, tedious, boring, and just not that. But then again, they're pretty much tripping on drugs on and off throughout the entirety of the movie.
Right.
Well,
because they keep getting fed
mushrooms
drugs
or tea or whatever the hell.
So after that first night, when she basically goes off and has a panic attack and then wakes up, they wake her up because she's passed out, and they're like, all right, let's go to the main area. So that's where they get to this community where they start, meeting all these people with their lower sort of way of life, non-technologically filled, but they have all these rituals that they're going to perform in the next 8 days.
They still have cameras, though, and it's not completely like...
No, the Americans do,
not
so they're not like taking their cameras away and stuff like that.
Well, no, there's the scene where they take the photograph.
Oh, that's true, but it's like a really old school camera.
It is true.
So anyway, they're there, and one of the dudes that's there is there to basically create his thesis. And the girl's boyfriend needs to do his thesis. Right, Josh, the black character, ends up needing to do his thesis, but her boyfriend ends up needing to do his thesis too, so that comes into play. And then the character that was from the Jennifer Aniston movie, the family movie,
Will Poulter.
Yeah, Will Poulter was from that movie, so he's there as well. But he's sort of played as the comic relief. And so what ends up happening is there's more going on with our main character and her boyfriend than anyone else, and slowly they start to get sort of taken away from the group because there are these 4 Americans plus two Brits that have been brought by another person from the community.
Well, the brother of the
people the guy that brought them, right? Yeah. Exactly. And so they, the first ritual that they all go to watch, which is in the trailer, is they're all lined up. And it's funny because the person, Pele, that brings them, explains that this community measures their life cycle in a circle, in a wheel of Ka, if you will.
Yeah, I thought this was
and
actually
so
very
it was,
fascinating.
they do it in 18-year increments. So the first 18 years is the winter, right? Or something like that. The next
spring.
18, or no, the first 18 years is the spring, and then it's the midsummer, or the summer is the 18 to 36, and then 36 to 50, what is it, 60? Or 36 to, whatever, another 18 years plus 36. Yeah, 54. That is the fall, because that's when you're doing the work and stuff like that. And then 54 to 72 is the winter.
Yeah, and it's where
and
you're almost like a
they even ask, he explains that to the people,
I thought
to
that
the
was
Americans.
really fascinating, actually. I thought that was cool.
I thought it was too, but I thought it was a little too predictable, because he explains that to them, and they're like, well, what happens at 72? And he just kind of jokingly goes, and I'm like, oh, because they had already pointed out before this point that the first thing that happened was there were these 2 old people that were given a torch that were held up. Just 2 that were given a torch to hold up. And we have no idea what the significance of that is. But then we're told after this other thing that the next big ceremony they're going to is called a particular thing. They don't know what's coming up. But Josh does, the guy that's been studying this. He has an idea. And so it turns out that it's these 2 old people that are apparently 72 who are clocking out. And the way they do it is they travel them up to the top of this rocky cliff, and they literally do this little thing where they bloody their hands and put them on the rock like you see in the poster and promo materials, and then they literally dive off the cliff onto a rock down below.
Wow.
Head first. Well, the woman does anyway.
Yeah.
She hits it head first, and this is the big instance, the first instance of gore that we get in the movie. She literally hits the rock like swan dive, smashing face down like the tremor at the end of Tremors.
And it's pretty gross, actually.
And it shows a close-up briefly of her body bouncing and her head like just opening up and just emptying.
Yeah, collapse.
And just completely crushed against the rock. The old man, unfortunately, and that's, so the Americans and the Brits see this and they all start freaking out.
Of course, because
they're like, what the hell is this?
But
they weren't explained, and so, what ends up happening is the old man then jumps, but he jumps straight down like a popsicle stick, and he breaks his legs at the bottom but survives. And you see at the beginning of the thing that there's just one member of the community that has this giant mallet,
and this
like
is
a giant croquet mallet. And I was like, oh, he's there to take care of the people that don't quite make it all the way. And so this dude survives, and he's and like the whole community starts to affect. They're like, like the whole community becomes like speaking tongues kind of thing, where they're like channeling whatever's going on around them. This happens numerous times in the movie. It's really weird.
It does actually.
But so they come over, and then one dude hits the dude in the head with the mallet, and then they pass the mallet down like it's Airplane taking turns slapping the person.
The younger girl does it too.
The younger girl hits him like 4 different people, takes swats, hitting him, bam, right in the face and flattening the head.
Dead.
Totally dead after the first one.
Pummel the head into flipping mush, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. So it's a weird instance of violence that comes out of nowhere, not unlike another Ari Aster movie, but it didn't have the impact, I don't think, because it was expected.
Yeah.
And so after that, they realize something is weird. One of the guys is like, no, it's okay, it's their culture, we just need to hang out and chill. That's not the case. They're a sinister group that bring in outsiders in order to sow the seeds of the community, so to speak.
Yeah, to prevent inbreeding, although, as they clarify at one other point later on in the film, they do utilize inbreeding at one particular point, because it's...
They utilize inbreeding to write their Bibles. Basically, their continued book of rules is written by the special needs person of the group, who is only shown 3 times, and you see it in the trailer, the really weird, messed up face person that looks like Patricia Arquette after a really long night of partying. That is the character.
Muchas coca. Yeah.
And that is the special needs character that apparently writes the rules, only on camera 3 times in the whole movie.
In the entire movie.
Never actually referred to or interacted with. Could have literally been shot after the fact, and we would never have known. Because there was never any interaction with this character at all. So it is a completely unfulfilled part of the story.
Big time.
Right?
Big time. 100%, man. I was very irked by just the utilization of that character, personally. I thought it was very, very disappointing.
Made no sense.
Yeah, it really did. And as things chug along, they continue tripping out on drugs. Friends start to disappear, and there's like
first off, it's because the Brits react the worst to this little display of violence.
Suicide, yeah.
They react the worst, and so the community, one at a time, takes them out. Yeah. And we sort of faintly... Here's where the audio kind of worked in its favor, was there was a couple times where you just heard very faint screams in the distance, and you see one of the characters, like, hearing it, but then, like, ignoring it and going back to what they're doing, and I was like, oh... That was really cool, you know? So there was a couple instances of that, but...
you get some revelation in the third act about, okay, that's what happened to this character, that's what happened to this character.
Yeah, well, it's a standard slasher at the third act where they discover all the bodies and you see what actually happened after the fact.
Yeah, but, so Danny's boyfriend, Christian, has apparently been paired, unbeknownst to her, with this redhead girl who has been deemed fit for mating, and so there's all these little... subplots of stuff, but really it just...
Who's trying to seduce Christian,
and it really...
Feeds him a pubic hair at one point.
Yeah, as they're eating their weird little meat pies that we thought were actually the old...
Which would have been way more interesting.
Yeah, but, I mean, as things drag along, it really just drags along in the third act.
And it doesn't pay off. It doesn't get an interesting enough ending. Like, basically the end is... they have when the main girl is like dancing around the thing, she's in this the May Queen contest where they all take hallucinogenic tea at the beginning, and they do this thing, and it's the last girl standing wins, and she ends up being the person that decides the fate of the remaining sacrifices, because what's revealed is that this big ceremony is done every 90 years, and every 90 years they have 9 sacrifices. There are 5 total outsiders, 4 that are, that they had taken care of early. That was the 2 Brits and the 2 parts of their crew, and Josh and Mark.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there was supposed to be a 5th one who needed to be determined by the May Queen.
And she chooses the boyfriend.
Who
and impregnated the redhead.
The redhead, because he was under
the most
influence too.
The most ridiculous scene in the
entire movie. Okay, so he is handpicked. He was handpicked to sow the seeds of this redhead to bring children into this group without needing inbreeding. And when they do, it's this entire, very Hereditary-like situation. The third act of Hereditary.
Naked older woman
the naked older women, where basically what happens is they put him in a robe and they send him into a room, and in the room there's like probably 15 women of varying ages and body types, all completely naked, head to toe, arm in arm, going like... Meanwhile, there's a redhead basically sitting there completely naked, gorgeous, and offering herself, because there's even a shot that follows her legs. The shots follow their legs, and then they just spread open to him. And I'm like, good Lord, this Ari Aster is really reveling in this scene. And the problem is, as weird of a setup as it is, this bed of flowers and stuff like that, the problem is this is where the movie gets laughable and silly. And it generated laughs in 3 different parts, because they go to this and then they cut away from it and they go back to it, cut away from it and go back to it again, where he is basically told that one of the old ladies comes and takes his robe off, and he's shown junk swinging, so you get full frontal nudity of every kind in this.
You get some dome.
And so he goes over and starts to try and get it going with her, and like starts thrusting, and they're doing their thing, and the girl like reaches up for one of the women, and the old woman, presumably her mom, like gets down on her knee and like and grabs her hand and starts like holding her hand, and it's like starts going and making these weird noises, and is like this far, and so she's like coming, she's like
she's like a part of it,
like face to face with it. I know it's tough to make contact with me, but that's what's going on. And then not only that, but then another old woman gets around behind him and starts like thrusting his butt and like, yo, get it done, get it done. And it's like the whole theater just starts cracking up, because you're like, what is going on?
It's supposed to be just weird and unsavory and unsettling, and yet we all just laugh.
So silly.
We all laughed.
So silly. Like, I don't know what audience that's going to play for without getting a massive laugh every time.
Even fans who will enjoy this movie and really just
when you see an old woman
some of his problems,
pressing on a young, in-shape dude's ass to get it done, which would never need to happen, like, it's so ridiculous.
He was doing a very mild thrust, though, because he was so tripped out on drugs. And
who wouldn't
and he had the big eyes going, and just like...
Yeah, the whole time, and he was like,
can I get it
gets
done?
so
and
weird.
And she's like saying in Swedish, finish.
And so at one point, the Josh dude, the black guy that's doing his
oh, he's dead by this point.
Thing. Well, I know, but earlier on, I want to go back to it a little bit, because he's doing the investigating on the group, and he wants to take a picture of their Bible that's made by the special needs people.
No, and that's what
they won't let him, so he sneaks in. He sneaks into the chapel at one point and is taking those pictures, and then he turns around and thinks he sees Mark, but it's not Mark. It's actually one of their community who has literally taken Mark's face off and put it like Leatherface style over their own, and then
Mark was the douchey Will Poulter guy.
Yeah, Mark was douchey Will Poulter, and then Josh gets hit over the head with that mallet and just knocked out and dead right there. I thought that was
actually an effective scene.
I thought it was okay. That was that was the Ari Aster Violence coming out of nowhere thing, but it wasn't unexpected. I knew it was coming at that point. So it wasn't effective is the problem. I just wanted to circle back to hit that too.
And also Poulter pissing on the tree, and you just
oh my god! And the dude, I was like, oh, you're dead. You're first. You're done. Yep. So yeah, that's basically the long and short of it, guys. I mean, the long of it, really. I've wanted this to be a short review, but we couldn't. It's a 2-hour and 20-minute movie. We had to go through the whole thing. So basically, yeah, she ends up winning the May Queen thing,
the dance off,
and after she basically walks in on her boyfriend doing the deed and getting thrusted to procreate. She freaks out. And a lot of the women around her, they start doing a sympathetic cry session, which also gets silly.
That scene was horrible.
It also gets silly because they're literally, she's crying and they start mimicking her sounds.
Yeah.
And so she'll go, ah! And they'll go, ah! And like, it's so dumb.
Like the ones closer up to her looked anguished, but
the rest were smiling.
One or two were smiling. They were laughing about it. Yeah. You know? And
it didn't work.
No.
Didn't work.
It didn't. And then the boyfriend gets paralyzed by a drug that they give him.
They blow like a voodoo dust into his face.
Like Bill Pullman
paralyzes him.
Yeah,
yep.
exactly.
Serpent in the Rainbow style.
Serpent in the Rainbow, and so Yeah, they end up putting him in the carcass of a bear.
In the carcass of a bear, which, by the way, early in the movie, I thought she was going to go face to face, not fight the bear, but go face to face with the bear, because there is a painting early in the movie right over the bed that she's sleeping in, where it's a bear with a woman in a flower crown, literally head to head, and I'm like, oh shit, I wonder what that's going to happen. And then we see later on that once they get there, there's a bear in a cage, and I'm like, and then eventually she has a crown of flowers. I'm like, oh shit, she's got to go head to head with a bear based on this picture we saw. That never happens. We see the bear in a cage at one point, and then we see the bear being vivisected and dissected like in the trailer and in promotional materials in order to have our dude who is paralyzed sewn into the bear costume a la Tusk, where the dude was put into the walrus costume.
And then the other guys, and they're all thrown into this makeshift structure.
So all 9 sacrifices, including 2 of their own community who have volunteered to be sacrifices.
One of which is the Swedish guy who brings
the brother of the guy.
His brother, and so, but they take some sort of paralysis, neurotoxin or whatever,
and they just scream when the fire gets over them.
They get burned the hell up. But it really just turns into the Wicker Man at the very end, where with people being burned up in a sacrificial manner, and
one of them being sewn into a bear costume for no reason.
And they all start just like rejoicing.
And then again, rejoicing. But feeling like, again, channeling the problem. So they're like, ah! But some of them are smiling and some of them aren't.
The pain,
it didn't make sense. It didn't track from person to person. Why are some smiling? Why are some channeling the burns?
And yet also Danny, even in those last 2 minutes of the film, remember how
Danny, who is in this massive
she's covered with
flower gown, essentially.
Within the span of 2 minutes,
gown/cage.
She's walking around. Walking around, just anguishingly crying and just weeping over presumed death of boyfriend. But then,
she chose to kill him.
A minute later, she's smiling
because she chose to kill him. Yeah, so that's the thing. It shows that she is fully converted. She's been fully converted, fully.
But after she was weeping about it, 2 minutes
it didn't
before,
make sense. It didn't track. It was trying to be evocative and provocative and cruel for provocativity and cruelty's sake, which is what we heard another critic walking out saying.
Yeah, a friend of ours from the Phoenix Film Festival.
It's literally the case. It did. It felt unnecessarily, he said it felt provocative and unnecessarily cruel, is what I heard when he said it.
Yeah,
exactly.
So he said that he didn't feel like either necessarily fit the narrative as well as they should have. Right. And that's to his point. We agree.
Yeah. Guys, we wanted to like this movie, Ari Aster's sophomore effort, but look, Jordan Peele stumbled in his sophomore effort too, in my opinion, with us. Some people might not agree. A lot of people, again, we mentioned at the beginning of our non-spoiler review that there's probably going to be a lot of people saying, you guys just didn't get it. You guys just suck at your jobs. You guys aren't real horror fans. Those are the responses we're going to get. But guys, we just didn't like this movie that much. We wanted to, and it was gorgeous to behold. The cinematography was amazing.
Double down on that.
Cinematography was utterly gorgeous. But even the audio I had trouble with, and the mix of the audio at times for the dialogue was off, and it felt off, and we saw it 10 days early, so I don't know if they're going to fix that in time, but it didn't work for us. It didn't work for me anyway.
Yeah, and if you want to see some of our other thoughts about it,
check the non-spoiler review.
Yeah, obviously, because we hit a lot of these points already.
But that's it. That's how it ends. Literally, she smiles and it cuts to credits. That's how the movie ends. That's why we are done. So that's going to do it for our spoiler discussion for Midsommar. If you guys have seen it, let us know what your thoughts are down below. I apologize if I know most people like watching when we enjoy movies. This is just not one we enjoyed, so I hope you understand.
I'm not going to like them all.
Let us know your thoughts down below. Once you see it, come back and tell us if you disagree and why. Explain why we're dumb. Explain why we don't know what we're talking about. Don't just say you're dumb, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not real horror fans. Explain why you disagree with us. Because there is some rough patches in this movie.
I feel like real horror fans, like us, hopefully, will go into...
Not according to some.
Well, a truer horror fan will go into extensive explanation about why they didn't like something, as opposed to just saying it sucks, or you guys suck,
yeah,
or whatever.
We just spent, 25 minutes, 30 minutes explaining why we didn't like it in a spoilerific way. Yeah. And another 20 minutes explaining why we didn't in the non-spoiler way. So we spent a lot of time explaining our thoughts. So if you disagree, fine. Let us know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, click that like button if you want to see more. Click that subscribe button. We just put up our review of Annabelle Comes Home recently, as well as Child's Play, obviously. Yay! And we have some horror franchise ranking videos coming up in the very near future. So make sure you stay tuned and click that notification bell if you don't want to miss an episode. Thank you guys very much for watching. Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
Gracias, Jaime, Fuego.
Thank you to our patrons. And remember, stay scared.